In the beginning, there was nothing. Then, there was Facebook, a sparky social media startup determined to connect us, led by an ambitious Caesar-cut Caucasian. But then Facebook announced a big change, with this video of a ghost chasing you around an empty, haunted tech office.
I believe the metaverse is the next chapter for the internet. So I've been thinking a lot about what this means for our company and who we are. Together, we can finally put people at the center of our technology and deliver an experience where we are present with each other. I am proud to announce that starting today, our company is now Meta.
I will accept no more mealy-mouthed word shenanigans from this animatronic boy man. This was all, somehow, 4 years ago. Now, Meta is a multi-pronged corporate behemoth. Mark dresses like a 19-year-old Xanax dealer, and I remain clueless as to what this company actually does. But today, I'm gonna change that. It may be hard to remember, but Facebook started as just a simple social media site, a digital sanctuary of sorts where millennials could poke each other raw. But within a few years, we found out that everyone on Earth really fucking loves this shit. Facebook became home to over 1 billion users a day and went on to acquire companies like Instagram and WhatsApp. This growth, however, set the stage for an embattled PR stretch that included the fallout from an alleged spreading of so-called fake news during the 2016 election, revelations that Facebook had become a platform for Russian espionage, and the Cambridge Analytica scandal, in which the British political consulting company secretly harvested data on a whole bunch of Facebook users. All of which inspired Mark Zuckerberg to close ranks and amass more and more unchecked power within the company. But if 2016 to 2021 was an embattled stretch for the artist formerly known as Facebook, then 2021 to now has been perhaps even more battled. This concept of Meta's metaverse never really caught on the way they thought it would, and soon its operations were bleeding cash like the money monster when you stab it, leading Meta to effectively shutter this iteration of their metaverse efforts at a near $80 billion loss, which would be a lot if the company didn't already make over $200 billion a year. Enough money to empower Zuckerberg's new aggressive investments into artificial intelligence, or in 2 letters, AI. Meta's AI push has mostly been defined by hiring top engineers with splashy NBA All-Star salaries and, more recently, unveiling a new model to relatively positive reception. This is happening concurrently with a broader cultural reckoning against big tech, with Meta and another website recently losing a landmark court case in which a jury ruled they knowingly designed features that were addictive and harmful for a young user. So overall, Facebook's transformation into Meta has brought us a long way. The point-and-click social media site is now a corporate behemoth gunning on AI and printing out smart glasses, which have built-in perv cameras and might also one day have facial recognition technology, despite the fact that Meta's been fined in the past for violating user privacy. Dan?
What was the purpose of the rebrand? Was it to try and separate themselves from the pretty damaged name that Facebook was building?
I think that was part of it, although they'll say that wasn't it at all. I actually do buy their explanation that at the time, you know, Facebook had done some big acquisitions. So they had Instagram, they had WhatsApp, they had Oculus. If you have all these things, it starts to become confusing, like Instagram brought to you by Facebook, right? And so it was to have this holding company thing. And you could look to like what Google did with Alphabet. It was a similar thing where it was becoming very sprawling and there were all these new bets and new companies. And you know, you don't want to have like Waymo brought to you by Google, right?
Alex Heath is an independent tech reporter who writes the newsletter Sources.
What does Meta actually do?
From a business perspective?
From a business perspective, yeah.
It sells your attention. That's it.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. How they make money is selling attention. Should have
Okay.
been more specific. And then Meta's attention is definitely less focused.
Alex Heath was undeniably qualified, but he was also being undeniably sassy to me as a guest on my very own show.
How they make money is selling attention. Should have been more specific. Should have been more specific.
Completely disrespectful. So I found myself another also qualified reporter who's been covering Meta for a super long time and asked him the same question, hoping he'd be nicer to me. What does Meta actually do?
I mean, I think that's a really good question.
That's how you treat Daddy Danny. This mustachioed rock and roller right here isn't just a great guy to fist some IPAs and argue about the best 2000s post-hardcore bands with. Nope, Mike Isaac is also the New York Times Silicon Valley correspondent.
I would still say at the end of the day, this is a company powered by Facebook, the app, Instagram, the app. Those are far and away just their money machines. They have WhatsApp. They have a hardware business where they make VR headsets. They have a hardware business where they make Ray-Ban camera glasses. And God, they have Threads, which is like, which is a Twitter clone. So they're doing a lot of stuff, and yet their name is basically after this one specific thing, their rebrand from a few years ago, that is still kind of, TBD on whether it still exists, is what I'd say.
From my perspective, as the normie consumer, it seems like Meta's pretty much just walked back on the whole, at least investment in the metaverse. I mean, how much of that is true?
I think it's totally fair to say it's on life support. They also keep saying, though, we're still doing it, we're still building hardware. They would argue, and there's some sort of philosophical debate around what the metaverse is, mixing a bunch of different realities at once. That's what I think the traditional metaverse is. What Meta did was kind of make it into metaverse equals VR, right? These headsets that we think everyone is going to use. Turns out no one used them, or at least very few, compared to the almost, $80 billion cumulatively across a bunch of different projects that they spent doing this. And they're really scaling back those efforts now.
I'm about to spit 6 letters at you, and it's very important that you remember them. A-H-R-E-F-S-S. Ahrefs. Ahrefs is the complete marketing intelligence platform that your company or your content team needs to be discovered in today's digital landscape. It helps you stay visible across search engines, AI assistants, and the broader web. But let's be honest, this complicated stuff is a little over my head. Which is why I called in a wicked smack colleague of mine at Morning Brew to tell you more about why he loves Ahrefs.
Lance, talk to me. How do you use Ahrefs in your day?
So as SEO being a huge part of my job, we actually switched to Ahrefs from because it was vastly letting us down in the technical SEO area. So monitoring things and improving things like page speed, site organization, all that good stuff. I have direct numbers showing how that's helped all of our franchises across the board improve, not in just traffic, site health, but it's really helped improve our internal workflow and how we address technical SEO issues as well.
Now, would you recommend this to other people?
Yes.
I mean, enough said. What more do you need to hear? Not a lot. Right now, you can go to ahrefs.com/free and start analyzing and improving your marketing. No trial, just free tools you can rely on. That's ahrefs.com/free. Ahrefs, thanks for sponsoring this video. To the rest of you, get like Lance and check them out. Though Meta's stable core of apps, which it calls its family of apps, may be how it makes its money, like any good ambitious father, Meta has turned its back on its family in pursuit of hotter, younger business opportunities. At one point, this meant pivoting into the metaverse. But now, we don't care about that shit. Now, it's all about AI, baby. Whatever that may mean.
The wilderness that they're kind of lost in right now is what their AI moves are going to be, and the rest of the industry has really taken off on AI, and they've made fits and starts on getting ahead and then falling behind. But it's still trying to make the case for what do you want Meta to be and what is its AI strategy going to be is still pretty hard to talk through. And for someone as dumb as yourself, it's especially hard to understand, basically.
At this point, I was fed up with talking to bespectacled hoity-toity reporty journalist fucks who think they're better than me. So I found some current and former Meta employees that I'm better than and invited them inside the swirling vortex of the Good Work Anonymous reporting portal.
What does Meta actually do?
Oh my god. I guess the classic party line is that we optimize our products to maximize our revenue. But basically we're an ad engine. We have pretty much an oligopoly of people's attention and use that to sell ads.
If you think about what you do day to day on Instagram, post photos of food you like to eat, things you like to do, friends you've made. All of this is in lieu of collecting information so as to better target ads.
See, that's not true. I post all of those things in order to connect with people.
That's a pretty consumer perspective way of giving all of this information that you're freely providing. But when you're posting that photo, what happens behind the scenes is that we use machine learning algorithms to tag things that they might see in the photo, and it correlates this with other things that you might be more likely interested in.
I work on like the Meta AI process. I don't think people know that like when you say like, hey Meta, all the workers can see her. So like I was with him like some very strange like user interactions, but like I basically have to like grade the interactions and see like is it like a pass or a lot, because it used to be like purely a human job just like to look at every interaction, like the sample of interactions. But now with that wicked AI agent that like does it for us, and so like I'm looking at like what the AI agent have to say about it and seeing if that's a correct or not to see if me and don't make any changes. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense? Why do people keep thinking I'm some kind of dummy? I'm not. I have a brain and it feels hurt sometimes. Folks, in my conversations with this anonymous squad of Meta Mafia, two things became clear. Everyone more or less understood that despite all of the recent noise, the way the company makes the vast majority of their money is by selling ads. Which, if you'll recall, is exactly what these assholes said earlier. They also explained to me that in some ways, being a professional metamate does have its perks.
I like the office. There's like free food.
I got flown around the world a couple of times just to, talk about various engineering related things, and then day to day, solving an interesting technical challenge was always kind of an easy way to excite me and make me forget about the base level of boredom that, it's this when you're working on serving ads to people.
Ebonian puffs were very real. You'd look at your Schwab account with all of your meta stock that's vested, and it'd be a bid number, but then an even greater number was the unvested stock. And so sitting there looking at my Schwab account going, if I quit right now, I'm giving up a little less than $2 million in stock for the next 4 years.
But at the same time, everyone also said that the reality of working at Meta depends a lot on the team you're on, which can be less than ideal, and sometimes even less than that.
The culture at the company. What was that?
Toxic.
What was that? Was it?
Toxic to the core.
But you just said you were working with all these smart people that you got along with. What happened?
I mean, these smart people also tend to be, rational and ambitious, and Zuck, he has this philosophy of like picking teams against each other to make them compete, and then it becomes like a Lord of the Flies kind of nasty politics. Like the first month was like the honeymoon phase where you get to experience like, oh my god, they had like 30 different types of like flavors of Coca-Cola or like all these different super healthy snacks. Like their gym has like these amazing like hot yoga sessions that as you start to like get acclimated, like the expectations become obvious, and then you're just like competing, and then whoever does the most projects stays and whoever doesn't, like, so everybody's like basically always constantly anxious to survive. So the amount of like stress and fear of what's going to happen to my job, you think you're in this like super secure, nutta amazing benefits, whatever job, and get everybody found ourselves just going, so like life could be impacted. There's during at the first round of like layouts, but that's what they say. They don't say, oh, he got like laid a lot because he was contracted.
What's happening inside of Meta now is that the company's push into AI appears to be combining with their already competitive culture to create a stew of bad vibes. A bourguignon of beef. Internally, Meta is installing software to track its employees' activities on the job, including mouse movements and keystrokes, in order to train its AI model. This is on top of recent layoffs, while Meta continues to spend more on AI infrastructure.
I've talked to a number of colleagues who are kind of just in this like flap happy state of like, who knows? My job might be around tomorrow, it might not be. Like, it just cannot imagine working in that environment. These days, like, he's not trying to hide, but this is what he's doing. It's like incredibly transparent internally. We are building AI to replace you, so keep working hard if we want to see what you do. I was in the integrity org. I think they call it trust and safety now because, that I was its own special little unicorn calling it integrity, but everyone else calls it trust and safety. My biggest focus was on sort of like the platform level detection mechanisms for like the worst of the worst stuff. And what Meta seemed to do was keep taking the engineers away. The number of conversations I had about like, we need this many more engineers to do this thing, I would always ask, and then it would be maybe half of what I needed. But that was not the case at all in Gen AI. It was like a glut of engineering over there. I had some workers go there and just be like, oh yeah, well, Gen AI have taught 47 engineers on building floppy faces that are gonna react when you send them.
Sorry.
We have to use like a certain amount of AI, like a basic order we have to need. I like the AI is like really shitty, but eventually we want us to use this about the constraints to be better.
But despite all the chaos and paranoia, Meta doesn't appear to be backing down from the broader AI race it finds itself in as a tech behemoth.
Zuck's thesis here that he's told me and others is, if you believe that AI and these models are foundational technology that are going to matter for decades to come, that are going to shape power, shape who wins in technology and just society more broadly in business, you don't want to be reliant on someone else's model if you're a large company, especially if you have a lot of resources and you have the will and the ability to be at the frontier. And I think that's what he's hoping that they're going to do, is be at the frontier, because this is a thing that people talk about in Silicon Valley, especially the competitors to Anthropic and OpenAI and Google DeepMind, is will these models always be as accessible to us as they are now? Will there ever be a moment where someone at the frontier realizes like, well, now I've created, digital God, and I'm not gonna give this to my competitors, and I'm gonna take off on my own. If you look at the history of Facebook, right, it was a website, then it was a mobile app. That transition was really tough. And if you, read into the headlines and the tensions, the business tensions that Facebook has had for the last 15 years, it's a lot of fighting with Apple and Google specifically because they control the app stores that Facebook is distributed through. And I think he views AI like, the modern day app store. It's like, I'm not going to be beholden to someone else's AI in the same way that I've been beholden to Apple and Google.
You're very plugged into the tech industry. How does the industry feel about Meta's direction right now?
I think everyone is very skeptical that they're going to be able to pull this AI Avengers reboot off.
Where does the skepticism come from?
Because no one's done this. No one's brought in all these personalities from all these leading labs, paid all this money, done it in such a public way with the stakes being so high because Meta's spending a shit ton in CapEx, right, to build all these data centers. Zuck told me it was going to be like 600 billion or something like that. It's a crazy number. That's the stakes, is like, this is what they're spending on this makes the metaverse look like a side project.
Now, as a guy who's currently trying to sell his Playboy-themed pinball machine on Facebook Marketplace for a cheap 1,200 clams, let's be fair to Meta for a second. Their investment into AI isn't just to create new products, but to uplift their core family of apps and make them more profitable as well. And that's already working. Isn't that right, Mark Mahaney, who heads up the investment bank Evercore's internet research team?
One of the companies that's shown the best track record at the application layer of deploying AI to improve its business is Meta. The service has become, thanks to AI, it's become more relevant, more personalized, so it's led to greater engagement. You give an advertising company like Meta, more engagement, they're going to give you more ad revenue. Their revenue growth has tripled over the last 3 years, and I think the deployment of AI to make the service more engaging for consumers, the deployment of AI to make their marketing campaigns more effective for marketers, it's just erupted into this P&L that 3 years ago, nobody thought that Meta would be a 30% revenue grower, but it is.
And there you have it, folks. Mark Zuckerberg, grower, not a shower. Shouts out to everybody on Kalshi who is waiting for us to break that news. Someone just made a life-changing amount of money. And that's what we're all about here on Good Work. Someone making a life-changing amount of money betting on Mark Zuckerberg's penis. Heartwarming story. So, what does Meta actually do? It set out to connect the world. And damn it actually kind of did. If by connect the world you mean get everyone crystal meth level addicted to social media, then they use those wildly popular social media apps to gather really accurate information about you to sell a gobsmacking number of ads to companies who want to sell stuff to you specifically. They give their employees great benefits, and lay them off from time to time. They lost over $80 billion building a technology that turns you into a blob person in virtual reality. They sell a surprising number of smart glasses that turn you into an annoying person in real reality. And now they're siphoning as many resources as possible towards artificial intelligence. But ultimately, Meta does whatever its creator wants to do in the name of clinging on to the empire he built off of Facebook.
Look, at the end of the day, I don't think this is unique to Mark. I think this is just Silicon Valley, which is you never want to get rendered irrelevant. And I think fear of being irrelevant, I know it keeps Mark up at night, but I think it keeps all of these guys up at night. I have a lot of criticisms of Mark, as many do, but the thing that I will give him is like, he and I are basically the same age. He's born a few months before me. I'm fucking tired. I like to like go to work and chill and like have 1 or 2 or 7 beers at the end of the day. And like that dude is working all the time and constantly like, what's next? You know, and I will give anyone props for that, because like you could easily rest on your laurels at this point and just be like, all right, now I'll figure out my successor and ride off into the sunset and stamp my legacy as like guy who built Facebook or like this big thing. But I don't think he's satisfied with that. I can't see him leaving the company anytime soon. Like they'll pry him out of that chair. He doesn't have to either, because he's got dual class share structure and like holds all the power. So like props to him for pushing. It's more a question of like, can he pull it off? Can he stay relevant for as long as possible? And TBD, I guess.
Indeed, TBD. Whatever that means. I guess we'll see, Mike. But we are going to have to wait to see if the artist formerly known as Facebook can truly evolve past its haters and dissatisfied employees to create new addictive money-printing technologies. Or in other words, complete a true metamorphosis. For Good Work, I'm Dan Toomey. There's also a lot of focus that Meta has on wearables, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Ray-Bans are now a big thing that perverts use to take photos of people in bars without them knowing. And
Since you said that, I've got mine. Should I put them on?
You do?
Yeah.
Oh my God! And by perverts, I did not mean the man sitting across from me.
Yeah, man. These are it. These are the Oakleys, which I actually like. And I work out with them.
Yeah.
Skiing.
You work out with these?
Yeah, when I'm running, you know, you can listen to music.
May I put them
go
on?
for it.
Is that okay?
Again, it has my prescription, so you might get blinded. But
That's okay. It wouldn't be.
You can take the insert out.
Oh, the little.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah.
Whoa, you cannot see,
No.
brother.